It's funny, people cling to their routines like their life rafts, gripping those schedules and time cards as if the whole world will crumble the moment they loosen their fingers. Work becomes this grand altar they kneel before, whispering prayers to deadlines and bosses and meetings that devour their days. But every now and then, a whisper gets through the noise, a whisper that tells you to drop it all, to step back, to walk away from the grind you've mistaken for purpose. And that whisper doesn't come wrapped in comfort. No, it's sharper, stranger, almost unsettlingly clear. It tells you that maybe you've been worshiping the wrong thing, that maybe the chains you thought were responsibilities were just chains. And when you finally hear that voice telling you to say goodbye to the work that's been draining the color from your days, it doesn't sound like permission, it sounds like a warning. A reminder that you can lose yourself in the very thing you think is keeping you stable. A reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step away from the machine you've been feeding with your life and dare to breathe without asking for approval. It's funny how people wrap themselves so tightly in their own routines that they start mistaking the wrapping for the gift. They wake up every morning, drag themselves to the same place, sit in the same chair, push the same button, nod at the same faces, and convince themselves that this endless loop is who they are. They don't even question it anymore. They cling to it like a child clings to a blanket that smells like safety, even though it's been soaked in fear for years. And you've been carrying that same blanket, walking around with it draped over your shoulders as if it makes you whole, as if without it, you would crumble into dust. But here's the twist. Maybe you already know you've been crumbling, just very slowly, politely, neatly. Isn't it amusing how you've convinced yourself that your identity is welded to tasks that drain the color from your eyes? You keep saying this is just who I am, but deep down you feel it, that tiny burn in your chest, the whisper that says this can't be everything. You've mistaken repetition for purpose, exhaustion for responsibility, and survival for a life. You've performed this act so long that you don't even remember when you last did something because you wanted to, not because it was expected or demanded or required to keep the machine running. And yet, you keep going. Why? Because stopping terrifies you more than slowly suffocating. Think about it. The version of you that goes to work every day, dragging unspoken dreams behind like wounded animals, was that ever truly you? Or is it just the version that was easiest for the world to manage? People around you applaud you for being stable, responsible, hardworking. They cheer for the mask, not the face beneath it. They love the character you've become, not the human you abandoned to play the part. Funny, isn't it, how applause can make change sound like freedom, but what if the part you're playing isn't needed anymore? What if the curtain is supposed to fall, not on your life, but on the performance you've been trapped in? You've confused the script with your soul. You've mistaken the lines they handed you for your own voice. And maybe the only reason you haven't walked away is because you're afraid that without this role, no one will know what to call you: worker, employee, provider, reliable, consistent. All those labels handed to you like it was some sort of honor, when really it was just a leash with a shiny tag. You've been so busy proving your worth that you forgot you already had it. You've been tangled up in the idea that your identity comes from what you produce, what you contribute, what you grind yourself down to maintain, as if you're some sort of machine that must justify its existence through constant output. But you aren't metal. You aren't gears and wires and circuits. You're flesh and breath and trembling heartbeats, and yet you treat yourself like something that can be replaced if it ever stops moving. Here's the thing, sometimes the only way to remember who you are is to let go of everything you're not. Maybe that's why the message feels so loud now. Maybe it's why the words echo in your chest like a warning. You've been gripping your work so tightly that you can't see how small it really is compared to the life you've been ignoring. You've mistaken the cage for the world. You've mistaken the work for yourself. And the tragic part is, you built half of the bars yourself. But there's something wild stirring inside you now. Something rattling the locks. Something that remembers a version of you that wasn't exhausted, drained wasn't defined by deadlines or schedules or expectations. You've been needed somewhere else. Somewhere your real identity has been. Waiting, neglected, dust-covered, irritated that you took this long. The version of you that laughs without permission, breathes without guilt, moves without being pushed. The version that doesn't need a title to exist. The version that remembers the world is bigger than the job that has swallowed your time, your energy, your dreams. You've mistaken the routine for the reason. You've mistaken the grind for the guide. And now the truth stands in front of you, tapping its foot impatiently, wondering how long you'll keep pretending the costume is skin. You've spent so long convincing yourself that stepping away from what drains you is some kind of crime. Like the world will collapse if you dare to shift your weight even an inch away from the grindstone. Oh, the way you cling to obligation like a guilty secret you think no one sees. But I see it. I see how you drag your feet through every day, pretending that you are being noble, responsible, dutiful, when really you're just scared. Scared that if you stop, even for a moment, everything you've been hiding from yourself will finally catch up. Scared that silence might expose truths you've been drowning under noise. Scared that if you walk away from the work that defines you, you might have to meet the version of yourself that's been waiting in the shadows, arms crossed, unimpressed. Isn't it funny how you treat rest like a luxury you don't deserve? As if taking a breath is some kind of sin. As if your bones haven't been whispering warnings for months, maybe years. People like you love to pretend they're fine, that they're strong, that they can carry it all without stumbling. But your shoulders tell the truth. Your eyes tell the truth. The cracks show, even when you try to paint over them with productivity. You've been running on fumes, dragging yourself through days that feel heavier than they should. And still you insist the answer is to do more, push harder, stay longer. Because stopping, that's the one thing you won't let yourself do. But let's unravel that little lie together. You don't avoid rest because you're too committed to work. No, you avoid rest because you're afraid of the quiet that comes with it. The quiet where there's no distraction, no endless tasks to drown in, nothing to keep your mind from wandering into rooms you've kept locked for years. When you stop working, you're forced to listen to the anger you've ignored, the exhaustion you've minimized, the dreams you've smothered, the truth that's been trying to claw its way out of your chest. Rest isn't the problem. It's the mirror it holds up to you. You've made yourself believe that stepping back is weakness, that slowing down is failure, that choosing yourself is selfish. But where did you get that idea? Who taught you that your worth comes from what you can produce instead of who you are? You didn't come into this world with a to-do list pinned to your soul. You learned that somewhere along the way, probably from people who were just as afraid of stopping as you are now. Passed down their fears like heirlooms, and you accepted them, thinking they were instructions for living. But there's something wildly liberating about realizing that the rules you've been following were written by people just as confused and lost as you. There's no grand authority punishing you for choosing rest. There's no invisible judge marking you down for daring to take a breath. The punishment, the guilt, the fear, all of that comes from you. You built that cage. You locked yourself inside it, and now you sit there, gripping the bars, insisting there's no way out. What if you stepped back, not forever, not dramatically, just enough to feel your pulse again, enough to remember what it feels like to be human, not a cog? What if stepping away from your work isn't an escape, but a return? A return to the things you once cared about before the world convinced you they didn't matter. A return to the pieces of yourself you abandoned in exchange for approval or stability or the illusion of control. Funny how people lose themselves in the pursuit of being responsible and then wonder why they feel hollow. You talk about rest like it's some dangerous luxury, but deep down you know it's the only thing keeping you from breaking. The world won't crumble if you pause. The sky won't crack open. The people who depend on you won't vanish, but you might finally feel something again. Something other than obligation, something other than exhaustion. You might feel relief, or clarity, or even the faint spark of a life you thought you weren't allowed to want. Maybe that's the real reason you resist rest, because the moment you stop running, you might realize you've been sprinting in the wrong direction for years. And that's a truth most people would rather drown than face. But you're here now, standing on the edge of a decision that's been stalking you from the shadows. You can keep pretending that your value is tied to constant motion, or you can step back and reclaim the parts of yourself you've sacrificed to survive. You ever notice how people beg for change, cry for transformation, pray for a breakthrough, yet cling to the very routines that keep them miserable? Oh, it's adorable in a tragic sort of way. They wake up every day, drag themselves through the same motions, complain about the weight on their chest. And then when the moment finally comes, when life leans in and whispers, here's your chance, they freeze, paralyzed. Because change isn't the bright, shiny miracle people imagine. It's messy. It's loud. It tears through your life like an unexpected guest who kicks the door off its hinges and starts rearranging your furniture without asking. And you, of course, are not an exception. You've been standing at the doorway of your own life, peeking around the corner, pretending you're waiting for the right time. Isn't that the funniest excuse? The right time. As if transformation politely schedules itself around your comfort. No, it barges in. It demands. It disrupts. That's what's happening now. A shift. A push. A moment that wants to drag you away from everything stale and suffocating. If only you'd stop gripping the edges like someone scared of being pulled into something too big for them. But here's the delicious part deep down. You want to be pulled. You know you're meant for something beyond the monotony. You've known it for a long time. Every time you stared at a ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why your life feels too small for you. Every time you felt that burn in your chest when someone else got what you secretly wanted but were too afraid to chase. Every time you caught yourself daydreaming about a version of you that isn't tired, isn't trapped, isn't pretending. All those little moments weren't accidents. They were tiny cracks forming in the old life you've outgrown. You've been getting nudged, pushed, warned even. Not by thunderbolts or dramatic signs, no, life is more cunning than that. It whispers through discomfort. It speaks through dissatisfaction. It warns you through that gnawing sense that you're wasting yourself. People think warnings come as disasters, but the most serious ones come as quiet irritations that don't go away. The boredom that feels heavier every week. The job that drains your spirit drop by drop. The relationships that feel more like obligations than connection. You think you can ignore all of that, but life has patience and a strange sense of humor. It lets you squirm. It lets you delay. Until finally it hits you with a moment where you can't pretend anymore. And that's where you are right now, on the edge of a shift that's been building for far longer than you admit. Something is pushing you out of the old version of yourself, and you feel it, don't you? That unsettling pull, that restlessness that keeps showing up the worst time, that strange awareness that your current life feels like a costume you're tired of wearing. It's not madness. It's not anxiety. It's the beginning of change, cracking its knuckles and stretching before it steps into your world. But change doesn't wait for your permission. It only waits for your honesty. And honesty? That's what you've been avoiding. Because being honest means admitting that the life you've built isn't the life you want. That the responsibilities you cling to are sometimes excuses. That the work you exhaust yourself for isn't feeding your soul. That the people who depend on you might be depending on the version of you that's disappearing. Honesty is a dangerous thing for someone who's been hiding their truth behind busyness. You keep convincing yourself that you're not ready, but readiness is a myth. No one is ever ready for the moment life decides to shake them awake. You don't prepare for it. You surrender to it. You let it pull you up from the rut you've sunk into. You let it unravel the parts of you that were built from fear. You let it expose what's been buried under obligation, expectation, and exhaustion. Because if you don't let this shift happen, if you cling to the familiar just because it's familiar, you'll suffocate under the weight of a life that doesn't fit you anymore. That's why everything feels so urgent now. Why the days feel tighter. Why you can't distract yourself the way you used to. Why pretending feels like a costume 2 sizes too small. You're not imagining the pressure. It's real, and it's here because you're meant to move, to shed, to rise, whether you feel ready or not. You ever notice how people cling to what's falling apart just because they're terrified of what comes next? They hold on with white knuckles, trembling hands, desperate smiles, pretending everything is fine, as if saying the word enough times might magically glue the pieces together. But you're starting to feel the truth, aren't you? That weird pull in the air, that quiet tension just beneath your skin. You can sense it. Something is brewing around you, something involving you, something that wouldn't be stirring this hard unless you were at the center of it. Oh, they don't tell you that part, do they? They don't tell you that being important doesn't feel glamorous. It feels heavy. It feels like pressure in your ribs. It feels like you're standing in a room where conversations stop the second you step inside, even if no one says a word. Because somewhere, whether you know it or not, a shift in your life has rattled people who never expected you to change. They liked you predictable. They liked you manageable. They liked you small. But your energy has been unsettling lately, hasn't it? That quiet confidence you didn't even mean to show. The way you've been pulling yourself back together, even in the tiniest ways. That alone is enough to make people nervous. People feel threatened when someone they're used to underestimating suddenly starts waking up. They can tolerate your pain, they can tolerate your exhaustion, but the moment you start to rise even a little, they scramble, they whisper, they react, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. And oh, how they hate that feeling. There's a war going on around you, and the funniest part is that some of the participants don't even realize they're fighting on your chapter of the map. They're just reacting out of jealousy, fear, insecurity, entitlement. They think they're protecting their place, their influence, their version of you. They don't understand that life has already outgrown the relationships and dynamics they're trying so desperately to preserve. They're wrestling shadows, trying to maintain control over a version of you that no longer exists. It's a losing battle, but people will fight the impossible when their pride is at stake. You, meanwhile, are feeling the effects of that tension without seeing all the strings behind it. Ever felt drained for no reason, like your energy is being tugged in directions you don't quite understand? Ever notice people acting strange, distant, overly friendly, oddly invested, or suspiciously quiet? That's not randomness, that's turbulence. The kind that forms when people sense you slipping out of their grip. They can feel you growing even before you recognize it yourself. You becoming more self-aware disrupts the old balance they depended on. But here's the part most people never acknowledge. Even when you're not actively doing anything, your mere existence triggers conflict in the hearts of others. Because you represent something they can't control, something unpredictable, something that threatens their sense of order. You're stepping into a version of yourself that they don't have a script for. That alone is enough to spark confusion, anxiety, and yes, even a quiet kind of fight behind the scenes. And no, this fight isn't always loud. It's not fists and shouting, it's subtle. It's in the way someone suddenly feels the need to compete with you. The way another person tries to undermine you with innocent comments. The way someone else pulls away, not because they're losing interest, but because your evolution intimidates them. The way certain people try to pull you back into old habits, old roles, old stories, because they can't handle the new version that's emerging. It's all part of that invisible battle ordering your life. But here's what they don't understand. You didn't ask for this shift. You didn't start this tension. You didn't wake up one day and decide to disrupt the natural order of things. Life simply moved you. Life simply unfolded a new chapter. Life simply changed your frequency, and the world around you had no choice but to react. They're fighting because they feel something changing, and human beings fear what they can't predict. You feel caught in the crossfire, don't you? Like you're being pulled between who you were and who you're becoming. Like you're trying to walk forward while hands behind you tug at your shirt. That's not your imagination. That's the resistance that always comes when transformation begins. Before life elevates you, it shakes everything around you. The shaking isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of movement. People don't fight for something irrelevant. They fight for something valuable. They fight for something shifting. They fight when they feel their hold slipping. You ever notice how people love to pretend they can predict you? As if they've got you all figured out, boxed, labeled, categorized like you're some neat little file in a cabinet they can pull out whenever they need to feel superior. They act like your story is finished, like your limits are written in stone, like your struggles are some permanent stamp on your forehead. And meanwhile, you're changing right under their noses, quietly, slowly, in ways they don't see coming. That's the part that rattles them. Not your flaws, not your failures, your evolution. Because once you start shifting, even a little, you become something they can't control, can't predict, can't possess. And nothing terrifies people more than losing their ability to define you. It's funny, really, how they cling to the older versions of you like desperate archivists, flipping through memories and moments trying to find proof that you're not growing. They'll bring up your past mistakes, not because they're helpful, but because it comforts them to think you're still the person who made them. They'll remind you of your weaknesses not because they care, but because it keeps you aligned with the role they want you to play. They need you to stay small so they don't have to confront their own lack of movement. They need you predictable so their world stays familiar. They need you stuck so they can stay comfortable. But you're not cooperating anymore, are you? You've started slipping from those old narratives, shedding them like old skin. Some part of you has been waking up, stretching, questioning everything you used to accept. And that awakening, it's causing trouble. It's causing confusion. It's causing whispers, tension, reaction. It's causing people to take a second look at you, not because you're loud, but because your silence has changed. Your energy feels different. Your boundaries feel firmer. Your vision feels sharper. And they don't like it. They don't know what to do with this version of you who isn't bending as easily, obeying as blindly, shrinking as politely. But let me tell you something they'll never admit to your face. They see your potential before you do. They feel it. They sense it in the way you carry yourself differently, even on the days you think you're falling apart. They notice that flicker in your eyes, the one that wasn't there before. They notice the subtle confidence rising under your uncertainty. They notice that your spirit isn't as breakable as it used to be, and that scares them. Because once you realize what you're capable of, you won't sit in the places they left you. You won't tolerate the limits they placed on you. You won't keep dimming yourself to keep the peace. You're becoming someone they can no longer manipulate with guilt or fear. Someone they can't push back into old patterns. Someone who is beginning to see value in themselves where others only saw usefulness. And growth like that, it has a way of shaking everything around you. It will attract some people and repel others. It will inspire some and intimidate others. It will make some cheer and make others quietly plot. Because when you rise, intentionally or not, you reveal the cracks in everything around you, every relationship, every environment, every expectation. People who depended on your weakness won't know how to handle your strength. People who fed on your insecurity won't know how to swallow your self-worth. People who were comfortable with your silence won't know what to do when you finally speak with clarity. They'll pretend you're changing too fast or becoming someone else. They'll say you're different, as if that's a crime, as if staying stagnant were a virtue. They're not worried about you changing. They're worried about losing access to the version of you they benefited from. And some part of you feels that tug, doesn't it? That friction, that strange discomfort when you try to grow in the presence of people who expect you to shrink. You can feel their resistance in the air like static. You can sense their unease, their glances, their sudden shift in tone. That's because they know something is unfolding in you that they can't stop. They know once you see yourself clearly, their little games won't work anymore. The beautiful thing is that you don't need them to understand. You don't need them to approve. You don't need them to applaud. Your transformation isn't a group project. It's a rebellion, a subtle one, a quiet revolution happening in your ribs. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming someone true. That's what's causing the disturbance around you. That's what's making them react. They're not witnessing your downfall. They're witnessing your awakening. You ever notice how people only start paying attention when you stop doing what they expect? As long as you're predictable, compliant, manageable, they don't look twice. They treat you like background noise, furniture, something that just sits there, holding weight without ever complaining. But the second you shift, even slightly, the second you stop moving according to their script, suddenly everyone's watching you like you've become a threat they didn't prepare for. It's fascinating, isn't it? How invisible you can be when you're breaking yourself for others. and how suspicious you become the moment you start putting yourself back together. Something in you has been stirring lately, hasn't it? That restless feeling under your ribs. That little spark in your gut that refuses to die out no matter how tired you are. It's been growing quietly, stubbornly, like a flame under wet wood, that somehow keeps finding enough heat to survive. And now that ember is bright enough for other people to see. Oh, they may not say it, they may not admit it, but they feel it. They sense that shift, like the moment before a storm when the air gets thick and charged. You've been carrying a different frequency, and even if you don't notice it, they do. And that's why things feel strange around you lately. Why certain people react with confusion. Why others suddenly act overly curious, overly involved, overly invested. They feel something unfolding in you that doesn't match the version they're comfortable with, the version they relied on, the version they could predict. They're noticing that you're not cracking the way you used to. You're not apologizing for existing the way you used to. You're not dimming, shrinking, bending, or breaking as easily as before. And that unsettles people who built their comfort on your compliance. The funny part, most of them can't even pinpoint what's changed. You haven't made some dramatic announcement. You haven't staged some big transformation. No, it's more subtle than that. It's in the way you breathe now, deeper, slower. It's in the way you carry yourself, a little straighter, a little firmer. It's in the way you think before you respond, instead of scrambling to please. It's in the way you've been reclaiming your own mind inch by inch. That's what catches their attention, the quietness of your shift, the steadiness, the seriousness. Because somewhere along the way you stopped trying to survive and started preparing to live. But here's the part most people won't say out loud: growth, real growth. It doesn't begin with joy or clarity or some inspirational moment. No. Real growth begins with discomfort. It begins with the feeling that your own life is too small for you. It begins with frustration that refuses to fade. It begins when you get tired of hearing yourself make the same excuses. It begins when the things you used to tolerate start feeling unbearable. That discomfort is the first warning sign that your soul is stretching beyond the limitations you've accepted. You've been feeling that discomfort, haven't you? That itch under the surface. That sense of urgency you can't quite explain. It's not fear. It's not anxiety. It's the beginning of alignment. It's the beginning of the moment where your inner world starts arguing with your outer world, demanding a new reality. And that argument, it gets loud, it gets messy, it gets impossible to ignore. You start noticing things you used to overlook. You start questioning things you used to accept. You start seeing through situations that used to trap you. That's the spark of transformation, the moment where ignorance becomes impossible. But transformation doesn't happen quietly. It shakes things loose. It unsettles everything that was built on your old self. People who relied on your silence will suddenly feel threatened by your voice. People who profited from your insecurity will panic when they sense your confidence returning. People who liked you confused will grow uneasy when your clarity starts showing, and they'll react subtly, indirectly, oddly, because they're not fighting you. They're fighting the new reality that your growth creates. And you're caught in the middle of it, feeling that tension like a rope tugging at both ends. One side pulling you back to the familiar, the predictable, the comfortable misery you've known for years. The other side calling you forward, not with certainty, but with possibility. And there you are, right between two identities, the one you've outgrown and the one you're becoming. That's why everything feels heightened right now. Why situations feel heavier, why emotions feel sharper, why choices feel more meaningful. Because you're not in a calm season of life, you're in a turning point. And turning points never happen quietly. They happen with pressure, with strange shifts, with signs you can't ignore, with a feeling that something is rearranging itself around you. Because it is, and it's happening for a reason you're just beginning to understand. You ever notice how everybody keeps talking about balance? Work-life balance, emotional balance, spiritual balance. They say it with those calm little smiles, like they're offering you herbal tea instead of a slow, spiritual suffocation. Balance, such a pretty word. Looks great on posters. Sounds poetic in speeches, but when you peel it apart, when you scrape away the veneer, what do you find? You find a masterpiece of contradiction. A world that demands you work like a machine yet feel like a monk. A world that wants you to grind endlessly yet glow gracefully. A world that promises peace while handing you chaos in a gift box. And people call that balance. Isn't it fascinating? Because deep down you already know the truth. You're not tired from working too much. You're tired from working against yourself. You're exhausted from playing roles you didn't audition for, wearing masks you didn't choose, chasing expectations you never agreed to. You're drained because the life you're living is pulling you in opposite direction like some cosmic tug of war, and everyone around you is shouting, just breathe, just meditate, just work harder, just quit, just manifest. Every voice telling you what to do except your own. And that's the twist. Your voice, the one voice that actually matters, is usually the quietest in the room. But imagine, just for a moment, stepping back and watching this whole circus from the outside, watching people sprinting toward goals they don't care about, grinding for titles they don't to value, sacrificing their nights to impress strangers whose names they don't remember. It's tragic, yes, but also marvelously theatrical. Humans working themselves to the bone while insisting they're building a future. Yet that future keeps moving further away, the harder they chase it. It's like trying to catch a shadow in the dark. The faster you run, the more ridiculous you look. Now think about the absurdity of it. The world tells you to rest, but only enough so you can work again. The world tells you to dream, but only dreams that fit neatly inside the job description. The world tells you to relax, but make sure you feel guilty for every second you stop moving. And you swallow it because you think this is normal. You think this is adulthood. You think this is how it's supposed to be. But really, it's just noise, beautiful, organized, socially accepted chaos disguised as responsibility. And oh, how willingly people embrace it. But balance, real balance, that's a different creature entirely. It's not gentle. It's not easy. It's not a peaceful walk in the park. It's messy. It's disruptive. It's uncomfortable. Because real balance means ripping away the illusions you've been fed. It means noticing how much of your life is built on patterns you didn't choose, habits you didn't question, and fears you didn't challenge. Real balance means facing the fact that you may have been living on autopilot, drifting through days that belong to everyone but you. And once you see that, once you feel that you can't unsee it, some people call it awakening, others call it rebellion, but really it's just honesty. Honest self-reflection. The kind that doesn't care about your schedule or your deadlines. The kind that doesn't care about your boss or your paycheck. The kind that looks straight into your soul and asks, who are you when no one is watching? And suddenly the whole structure of your life trembles, because that question opens doors you've kept locked for years. And when those doors open, what walks out? Desire. Real desire. Not the one shaped by your culture or your family or your workplace, but the one shaped by something deeper, something older, something truer. That desire doesn't whisper. It demands, it claws, it pulls, and once it wakes up, it doesn't let you return to your old rhythm. It makes your routine feel too tight, your job feels too small, your obligations feel too scripted. It turns your life into a stage that's been using the wrong script for far too long. And the funny part, everyone around you will sense it. They'll see you shifting. They'll feel the difference. They'll wonder why you suddenly question things you used to tolerate. Why you're no longer entertained by the same tricks. Why the same chains no longer hold you. They'll call it a phase, a crisis, a mood. But deep down, you know it's none of those. It's balance trying to break through, clawing its way past the chaos you've mistaken for normality.